it's Tatiana. As I say in the beginning of all my videos, I wanted to explain I'm not a doctor, and these videos are part of my own coping strategy, as well as my deepest hope is that the things that I'm talking about are, I hope they're acknowledging and validating someone else's feelings if they're going through an abusive relationship like I have in the past. This video today is about removing labels. Something interesting happened the other day. I was working on a project and had come across a photograph of myself when I was about 11 or 12. And I had been sexually abused by a family friend prior to that, but so much more worse things happened after that photo. And then I came across another photo of me about 3 years ago, so I was about 39 in the photo, and I thought, you know, you've been through a lot, and a lot of negative things have been spoken over you. And so what I wanted to talk about was just to validate you first, if you've gone through what I have, the labels that have been put on me. I spoke in one of my videos about the overt narcissist, I believe. The insults that he has said to me still run through my head now, whatever, 20 years later. And I don't repeat those insults to anyone. And I think that as we get out of the relationship, I think it's encouraging to know that most likely the person who has abused you has probably said a million insults to you. It's just that the other ones didn't bother you. So the first thing I want you to know is that those insults that they've repeated to you, whatever it is, whatever it is that hurts your feelings, the way that you look, the way that you smell, whatever it is, I want you to take it and I want you to put it in a box, and you can decide 5 years from now if that was really a valid insult. Because my experience has shown that all of the insults are just the ones that stuck. They're just the ones that actually hurt your feelings. So they probably didn't even truly think about that thing. They just liked the fact that it hurt you, okay? So it's sick and twisted and sad, but who cares about them? This is about you and surviving and getting rid of those labels. So again, to explain some of the labels that were put on me as a child, my father used to call all of the siblings stupid, and over time I realized I believed that he just was frustrated. He didn't really know how to raise a teenager. So I'm sorry if certain information isn't in my head at 13. It's because I've only been on the planet for 13 years. I'm not stupid. I just haven't experienced everything that the 35-year-old man has experienced. And that, I'd say probably that took me until after my master's degree to realize that that's what was going on. So the positive of that experience was my striving to not be stupid my entire life. Really drove me forward. So that's another way that you can deal with those labels, is to use it and to prove that person wrong. Another example of what I've been through, which is a little difficult to mention, but like I said, I was looking at that photograph of myself at about 11 or 12, and just before I turned 13, my stepfather had molested me, and went and reported that to my mother and insisted that I apologize to my mother for seducing him. So I was almost 13, completely not sexually active, quite ignorant about that entire aspect of humanity, and here I was apologizing to my mother for seducing him. And the key of that experience was that she believed him. She believed him. that I had seduced him. And that internal dialogue that my mother believed that I was a slut was huge, and a huge, huge, huge driving force in my life. Um, and it continued to be there. So subtle reminders throughout my lifetime, my entire lifetime, she would bring it up that I needed to not be lascivious or sexual, like I had been with my stepfather. So the sorry, such a difficult topic, but so I wanted to explain that particular label. Especially those of us who have been sexually abused, we often do, in our youth, find ourselves very promiscuous, because that was the affection that we were getting and the parameters or the paradigms that we learned about affection. And then I have the other driving force to prove to my mother that I'm not a slut. So I went through my promiscuous phase in my early teen years, and then deeply tried to grasp onto that good girl persona. So I got married young. Once we were divorced, which was shortly after, I got into the abusive relationship that I talk about in the overt narcissist videos, and followed by, and that was a 4-year relationship, followed by the second man that I married, who I was with for 12 years. But the key of that label of being a slut truly drove me to stay in a neglectful, abusive relationship for a very long time. But it also damaged my motivating force in my religion. So I was with him for 6 years. We did not have sex. We had sex on our wedding day. The 2 week or two after our honeymoon, I got back home and received a letter from my mother where she said that now that I'm married, I need to not be so sexual. So that moment in time, I realized, and I think I was about 30, I realized there's nothing I can do. I was with, 3 guys in the course of 10, 11, 12 years, and I'm married now, and she's still accusing me of being a slut. And I realized that she's always going to have that label on me, and there was nothing that I could do to change that label. So anyway, I did continue in that marriage, and did not want to leave that marriage. I did not want, my mother to be disappointed. I really, that's the paradigms of a label. That's a lie. It was a lie. So I stuck in this relationship, and that label did not go away until she died. I knew my mother died of cancer, and she had cancer we knew that she had cancer for several months before she died, and I hoped, as I had always hoped, that she would remove that label, that at some point in my lifetime that she would say, I'm sorry that I didn't believe you. I think we want that for all of the labels that people put on us, is for them to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and that would be great. I've never heard of anybody doing that, but and that didn't happen for me. And I love my mother. I do love her. I believe, and I know she was in an abusive relationship, and that was a codependent relationship, and she tried in her life to get out of that codependent tendency, and that's about the closest I can get to her acknowledging that that what she did was wrong. Nevertheless, I did not get that moment before she died of her just saying, "I'm sorry." So for me, the only release was when she passed away. I of course I was sad that she was gone, and I pray to see her in heaven. But that label at that point died because she was no longer able to say it to me. And if that is the case with you, if you have a parent who abused you or said lies to you, there it would be wonderful if they ask for forgiveness, but you have to continue your life, even if they don't remove it. You have to make a decision that that label doesn't belong on you. And I'll give you an example. Was maybe 2 years after my mother passed away, my father, there was a lot of drama, and he did some extremely hurtful things to me. And at a certain point, I was able to get up the courage and ask him why he was doing these particular things to me. And he said to me, "Because nobody will ever love you and no one will ever marry you." And golly, I mean, it wasn't too many years ago, so it was maybe 33 or 35, and still at that age, what your parents say is very, 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 very powerful. And I was devastated, suicidal. I was devastated after that. But even in that moment that he said it, I was so angry at him for thinking that about me. And I said to him something sarcastic, like, "Well, thanks so much for believing in me. I really appreciate that." But my father never believed in me. So my self-esteem had been building up before that. And so even though there was that conflict in my mind, this is what your father thinks about you, well, what's there to live for if you can't be Cinderella? And the other concept of, I know I'm a likable person. I know I'm a lovable person. I know someone will love me. I know someone will want to marry me. So this last example for me of what you do with that label that's been put on you is to deny it and to fight against everything in your mind that says what they're saying is true. And that dialogue does come into my mind a lot. And every time it comes into my mind, I have to say that. I have to say, even out loud to myself, someone will love me. I am lovable. And I think for the key is to say it out loud, to say what the truth is and to know the truth. Even if you are in an abusive relationship and you feel insecure about yourself, the time to start removing those labels is now. Even if you haven't figured out a way how to get out of the relationship, you can start removing those labels. Even in that first abusive relationship, the insults that he would say to me, I started to practice. I didn't have the confidence. I believed what he said. I believed those insulting things about myself or my physical appearance, but I never repeated them. I never acknowledged them. When he insulted me, I tried my best to just not even show him that it hurt my feelings anymore, and he stopped saying them. It didn't stop the internal dialogue, but he stopped saying it because he wasn't getting the narcissistic supply that he was looking for. So anyway, I hope I'm making some kind of coherent communication here, because the key that I wanted to say, the conclusion for all that I'm trying to say about these labels, is that you have to figure out a way to remove them. They're lies. They are lies. So start speaking the truth. Whatever it is that you can find about yourself that you like, you need to start repeating that to yourself. And I can tell you this, even if that person has been abusing you or insulting you for so long, you might not have the self-esteem. I can tell you this: if you're in an abusive relationship and you're the codependent party, I can tell you that you probably are a very sensitive person. You're an empathetic person. You quickly understand what people are communicating. These are all things that you have developed to survive an abusive relationship. And once you are out of that abusive relationship, those are really great qualities to have. Those are great qualities to have. To be a kind, considerate, thoughtful, insightful person. So start talking to yourself about the positive aspects of who you are. And I just wanted to finish up, as I was thinking about doing this video, I remembered sitting at a dinner here in Los Angeles, and so hoity-toity people, and there was a point in the conversation where it should have been real. You know, we're talking about our own experiences, and the asshole narcissist that I was with turned it into this name dropping session. Oh, and so said blah blah blah, and he's name dropping, and you know, personally for me, name dropping of celebrities is a true pet peeve of mine. If I am at a dinner party or wherever and someone needs to name drop someone else's name, I think the least of that person instantly that somewhere inside of you don't believe that your presence at this table is valuable enough. You need to actually say, well, I met so and so, or I had a conversation with blah blah blah. Who gives a shit? You know, I went to the grocery store and I had a conversation with Celeste. She's a human being too. And who knows? Maybe she's a single mom. She's been working there for 20 years and pulling it all together and sending her kids to college. That's valuable. You know, somebody else who got picked up out of a casting crew and got turned into a celebrity, maybe they just had good looks. How is that person's circumstances in life that made their name famous make them a valuable person? And worse, you need to claim that person's name in order to make yourself somebody special. It's a huge pet peeve of mine, the moment somebody starts name dropping. So anyway, as I was going through that, the pictures and thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I thought, I realized I name drop all the time. My name. So you should start, that's my advice, is you should start name dropping your own name. For example, the last guy I was dating, that there was a point where he said something disrespectful, and I said, "This is Tatiana. I don't get treated that way." So I noticed over time, it's so funny that I've been unconscious of it, but I've noticed over time that is my coping strategy for the negative labels that have been put on me. Whatever the physical insult, it's Tatiana. I just love my mouth, later on, my mother, it's like, wow, it's Tatiana. I'm ridiculously conservative on the inside. On the inside, I am so conservative, I annoy myself, okay? And my dad, saying his things, that nobody will love me. I've had many people love me. I have many people in my life that do love me. It's Tatiana, of course, right? Okay, so you see my point? It doesn't matter if you know me or, or if it's valuable to you. You name dropping your own name is valuable to you. When you go and look in yourself in the mirror in the morning, you tell yourself, hey, it's John. I am hot, and I'm Cynthia. Girl, you got it going on. Name drop yourself before you walk out the door, because you are valuable. And I want you to keep looking for those things that you find valuable in yourself and say them out loud. Okay. Anyway, that is my goal for today was to talk about getting rid of those labels, because I had to go through that emotional moment, and I'm hoping that someone else out there is going to get some value out of that. Okay, and of course I have to grab my notes really quick. So to conclude, remember, I always close with the National Domestic Violence Hotline number if you need to give them a call and talk about the negative labels that someone has spoken to you. You can talk to them about that. You can say, this is what they said, that's what they said, and it makes me feel insecure, and I'm hurting, and do you have any resources? I don't have money. Is there a counselor that I can go see and start working my way out of these difficulties? And this internal dialogue, and how I can start getting those labels off of me so I can be everything that I am made to be. The National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-SAFE, or just in the numbers, 1-800-799-7233. And I'm just wishing you the best, most confident statements about yourself, and some really good rubbing alcohol. Get those icky labels off. They're lies, and they will come right off as soon as you start repeating the truth to yourself. Much love.